everybody. This is Laurie Handlers, and you're listening to Sex and Happiness, a show about your sex and your happiness. And today I'm being interviewed by Briana Cribyer.
Hey, I'm delighted to be here interviewing you.
She's right here in my house. You can see there's a mirror behind us. So you'll see, us moving in the back and behind us in the mirror. I have decided that I'm going to be doing some new stuff with my show, which is to let you know some of the more current things that I'm into these days, rather than interviewing other people. And Briana has offered to interview me about some of those things. So one of the new things is that I had eye surgery, too. I had this one 3 weeks ago, and I had this one this week. And so I'm not going to be wearing my big glasses anymore.
Which is a shame because they're real cute.
They are cute. But I have new readers. I have to wear readers for when I'm reading. So they look the same as my other glasses because they're red. But I can't see anything up here with these on. So I'm going backwards, which is what I've
always wanted.
Which I plan to do, reverse aging. So here we go. I'm going backwards. So today we're going to be talking to me, and Briana has prepared some questions, and I'm clueless as to the questions that she's prepared.
Well, it's going to be like all of the conversations that we have.
Okay.
Right. Just
it's great.
In the flow and opening up.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And in case you don't know, Briana and I have been leading courses called Sex and Happiness Journey and Sex and Happiness Express almost since COVID started. Tremendously successful courses online. We have over 100 graduates.
We do.
We do?
Yeah, about 110 graduates at this point. Mm-hmm.
And lest I forget, we also, from there, some of the people who graduated, we took under our wings and made them apprentices, and they're studying to study and to be able to offer sex and happiness offerings along the lines of the material that I've written in my book, Sex and Happiness. So we have 2 tiers of programs, and we're about to have a third, but we'll tell you a little bit about that one at the end. So I got to give you something to stick around for.
So as you're talking about reverse aging, one of the things that I think about in your teachings is how important pleasure is to your vitality, not just yours, but to other people.
Pleasure is so important. People don't realize it. Like pleasure has become the P word, which is so weird. Like there are social medias that take pleasure out. Facebook sends its bots to find the word pleasure in various ads and sometimes takes it down. Pleasure is really important. Golfing is pleasurable, swimming is pleasurable, running is pleasurable, but the actual pleasure of the skin, the pleasure of the flesh, we'll say, is super important because it produces oxytocin and nothing else. Running doesn't produce oxytocin. It produces endorphins and it produces serotonin. Those are really important to our bodies, but touch, whether it's self-touch or whether it's touching another, is super important. And our brains depend on it. And so when we talk about longevity and then we talk about reversing aging, haven't you ever walked into a room and looked around the room and said, having sex, having sex, having sex.
Pointing at people
dried up,
the room.
Not having sex.
Oh, like you can feel the energy coming off of people.
Look, haggard, gray looking. I'm not talking about if it's man or woman. Like you can just tell when somebody's not getting laid, they're not getting touched, they're not connecting. And there must be so many of you out there now who are not connecting because of COVID. We know, look, we have.
This has been the number one thing that people have said that they miss is physical touch and connection.
Yeah. Now we have friends in New York City who live. I always consider living in New York City, which I come from. So it's not like I never did this. Living in shoeboxes, little shoeboxes that have a bathroom and a little kitchenette. And maybe you're lucky enough to have an alcove. She wrote about that in, I think it was in Fear of Flying. She talked about apartments in New York City with alcoves where you would put the bed. But like, I'm laughing, but I know that there are people holed up, even if they have big houses in Connecticut or Wyoming or wherever, who have not seen a human being in a very long time. I have friends who haven't seen anybody and they're here in Arizona.
And so then people are really reliant upon finding pleasure in other ways, finding pleasure with the self. There's been a huge spike from sex toy companies for self-pleasure items.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, what a gift. What a gift for that. And I think it's a big piece that people are looking for right now is how do I stay healthy? And what I hear you saying over and over again is to be in pleasure.
You have to be in pleasure. If you hate what you do, it's time to look. If COVID did anything, it gave you a chance to reevaluate your life. Like it gave us all a chance to reevaluate. That's why we created what we created. We just went like, okay, there's COVID.
What do people need right now? What do people need? What do we need?
What do we need? What do people need? And we can't go anywhere. We can't get together. So what are we going to do? And so we created what we created. And as you probably know, Michael and I created some things too. We were on our way to Miami and then to Tel Aviv when everything got shut down. And so my friend from Tel Aviv called me and he said, Laurie, the skies are closed. You can't come in or out.
Oh, the heartbreak.
It was. We had to cancel everything. So we immediately put everything online. That was the first thing.
So we were talking 2 days ago and I was trying to think of, we're brainstorming and I was trying to think of a word for the opposite of suffering. And really what I've felt throughout the last year is it's so easy to be in suffering. It's so easy because the creature comforts that we rely upon are no longer available to us. Even, grocery shopping for some people, they don't feel safe, or there are periods of time where it really didn't feel safe to be in grocery stores. And so I'm saying, like, what's the opposite of suffering? And pleasure is the first thing that comes to mind for me. Perhaps there's lots of other words that fit it, but for me personally right now, it's pleasure. Am I choosing suffering? Am I choosing pleasure?
But that takes consciousness. I mean, just to even ask that question takes consciousness and some self-awareness, because the reptilian brain would have you suffer. Mm-hmm. And so listen, everybody, if you have been suffering, you don't get down on yourself about it, because it's not, or guilty or ashamed of it. The limbic system is very ancient in our bodies. It was one of the first things formed, and it connects to the reptilian brain, which is the stem of the brain. And that part has to do with survival, and it makes us suffer over things. We think a bear is coming when there is no bear coming to attack us. So to some people, COVID was the bear, or the saber-toothed tiger that came back to, that scared this part of us. And this part is like a pit bull. It doesn't let go. Like, you have to actually literally ask yourself, do I want to be suffering, or do I want to be in pleasure?
And it attacks all of the parts of ourselves. It affects our sleep, which we know that we need to stay regulated and to be in our pleasure.
Right.
It creates cravings in our body for things that don't make us feel good, whether that's alcohol, sugar, caffeine. We get more intense cravings when that fear is activated.
Listen, I can attest to that.
Yeah.
I have a 5-pound extra. So, I thought I was doing so good, and then I was trying on my clothes and I was like, whoa, I gained a little weight, this little COVID fatty cells. So yeah.
So when you think about staying in pleasure and how people can keep that present in their lives, and particularly what I'm interested in, which leads us into what you've been working on and creating over the past year plus, really. If we've been in a pattern of suffering, it's more challenging to move out of that pattern the older we get, is the story that we tell ourselves, and also can feel very true.
People say a lot of things to themselves. I'm too old for this shit. One thing. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm getting older. Look, I can't do this anymore. This is what comes with age. I'm no spring chicken. I'm no whatever it is. Those are all built-in things that the culture says. We've learned that people who are 30 think they're old when they hit 30.
Yep.
So, so I'm here to say that's not true. But that's another, excuse me, that takes another bit of consciousness. That's what I had to learn, not to say that stuff to myself. Like, I changed everything. Like, there is no cheesecake to die for. Okay. And there's no break a leg when we're doing a show. You know, we're doing a show and we're not breaking a leg, and we're not knocking them dead when we go to do a workshop.
You've shifted your language in order to support your thought patterns.
Exactly.
Right? In so many ways.
I knock people alive.
But
when I show
particularly,
up, when I show up at a course, I knock them alive. I don't knock people dead.
To wake them up.
Exactly.
Wake people up.
Exactly.
Wake people up to life.
But I had to learn that. That's not original to me. People shared that with me, and I took it on. And it's so funny when, you know, when Michael will say, that's dead on. And then he'll look at me and he'll go, that wasn't, was it?
I wasn't supposed to say that. So for anyone that's listening today and they're feeling, even whether you're 30 or 75, and wondering, how can I feel my life? How can I feel young? And particularly if this is connected to pleasure, and thinking I've been, I'm 30, I'll be 38 this year. I've noticed in my lifetime periods of pulling back from pleasure, where I want to pull back to suffer more.
I'm not ringing the bell.
Don't ring the bell for that. It is a spot on statement, but don't ring the bell because it's not something that I ever want to move towards. Really, what I want to move away from that.
But people do that. They self-deprecate.
Yeah.
It's like
deprive. Yeah.
You know,
deprivation.
Yeah. I'll deprive myself of this pleasure because I wasn't good. I wasn't a good person. I didn't do good. I made a mistake. Let me punish myself. We have enculturated. It's such a big word for it. We've learned very well from our teachers, whether it was our parents who were that way, or religion, or the culture, that, you know, if you don't do good, you get punished, and you have to, like, you can't have dessert, which is pleasurable. So you can't have dessert if you want to punish yourself. That's crazy. It is. It's crazy. Why would I want to punish myself? I didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. So that's, yeah. But so what's the suffering? And everyone has to answer that for themselves. What are you suffering over? And what won't you, you know, like what, if Briana and I came over and we tried to take the hammer of suffering out of your hand, what would you be clinging to? Why would you fight us about that? What is the insistence on suffering? I don't get it. But it's, you know, I had to train myself not to get it.
So what do you feel like is the way for people to connect back to their pleasure, particularly if they notice that they've been in the suffering or in the deprivation?
A few things. Let's look at like things that aren't too hard. So first,
simple steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much do you sleep? All right. Now you may have heard Kirk Parsley on my show, my sleep expert. He says you need 7.5 hours of sleep a night or more. How much do you sleep? Would you give yourself the luxury of sleeping that long? If you don't sleep like that naturally, would you take valerian root or something that would help you sleep? You need it, and you need it more than you know. You could go back in my show listings and look for sleep, because sometimes your relationships end because you have different sleep patterns and you think it's a personality trait. So how much do you sleep? That's one. How luxurious of a bath do you take? Do you only shower? Would you give yourself a bubble bath? Would you give yourself a bath in candlelight? Would you play sweet music? I mean, Those are easy things, and they're not too much of a stretch for most people.
And then rub oil on your body afterwards. The bath doesn't end when the bath ends.
Right.
It's how much can you carry that into your day or into your night.
And could you put relaxing stuff in the bath, like Epsom salts, like that? So those are two really easy things. Now let's talk about moving the body. Could you walk? If you're really paranoid, could you walk with a mask on? Could you walk in your neighborhood, wherever it is? Could you just give your body the pleasure of doing something? And so on. So you build on things that are simple until, like, could you work out? Could you touch yourself? Could you rub your hands together and feel the warmth of your hands? And then could you touch yourself? Could you feel what that feels like? And we're not going to give you an exercise here in self-pleasure, but the idea is to start becoming aware. Could you get up every few hours from your computer or from whatever and stretch? How are those?
Sit by the window and watch the birds.
Exactly.
Take deep breaths. Right. And there's so many ways for people to do this now because there are free apps that support this. And then there's ways to go deeper with it. Really ways to dig deeper.
I think people used to go shopping. Like the only way they would reward themselves is to buy a new pair of shoes or something.
Sure.
And I feel like these things should take over that.
Yeah. When I hear about self-care, so many people thought that they had to give up their self-care because self-care meant getting a massage, getting your hair done, getting nails done.
Look, my nails haven't been done since COVID. I keep looking at those videos of me where I had that bright orange.
Oh yeah, that bright orange.
Look.
But this really has to do with caring for the self in a deeper way. Sometimes it's creating a flower arrangement. Sometimes it's cleaning the house. Sometimes it's reorganizing something that you've been putting off. Sometimes it's actually just taking time to be with yourself in the mirror. I mean, the reason that we like having attention paid to us, yes, the physical touch from someone else feels great with massage and hair and even nails, getting, somebody's there and they're waiting on you. But what if we gave that to ourselves? So Laurie and I in the Sex and Happiness journey, oftentimes, and probably with our private clients as well, have assigned people to do a self date. And there's so many beautiful things that come out of this self date. And it's interesting to notice when someone's immediate first thing that they think about is to go spend money on something.
Right.
And perhaps, it's great to notice if we never give to ourselves financially, if we're never investing in ourselves, investing in new clothes or investing in something that makes us look and feel good, but how much more there is to explore beyond that.
Absolutely. So that's our recommendation. I mean, of course, it's always going to be up to you. We're not going to be there to see if they did their homework, but pleasure is important in your whole nervous system. Pleasure is important in your whole hormonal system. Pleasure is important for your brain and your synapses. So why not take on the assignment?
All right. So we've now actually given the assignment for a self date. Here we were just referencing it, but I'd really love to hear from people that are diving into this and are taking themselves. And let's say that you've done this before. Well, great. Surprise yourself and see how it's new. It's not really a one-time thing. We don't go on a date with our partners one time and think that we're good to go. That's it. Or even once a year.
No.
I mean, we see this with couples all the time. Yeah, we went out for our anniversary once a year. Yeah,
oh my
certainly.
God.
And not planning something once a week or a couple times a week to have something special where you get to drop in. Even if you find that one activity, that lights you up and sparks that connection. Great. Do that every week.
Do it every week.
Do it every week. Find the thing that works.
It's great. In my house, we have a fire pit. And during COVID, we had fires pretty much every night, which was really nice.
Oh, it's a game changer. It's a game changer.
So
one of the things that I'm curious about then, so here are some simple ways to bring pleasure back into your life. And now let's particularly talk about with aging. As we get older, as we've been on this planet, as we have more experience being alive is really how I like to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the common things that people think about is that sex also gets harder. And
it gets different.
and right. Well, and I've heard you say it even gets better. And I think
It
that's
does
what
get
we're really
better.
talking about here is
Well,
what are the ways that it gets better?
it gets better because we're not so hung up on what other people think about us, so we can just be wild within ourselves. Like I don't have to impress my partner because I'm so worried about what my partner is going to think about me. I actually don't care what my partner thinks about me. I care that I have the best pleasure I could possibly have when I'm having sex. So that's one thing too. I'm not going to be worried about getting pregnant anytime soon. Yay. So that's not even a problem. Um, um, yeah, I don't have to work. I'm not going through the phases of menstruation and the down that it is just before bleeding and then the whole bleeding thing and then the after. So all of that is gone. And so it's just when I want to have sex, I want to have sex and I want it to be good. And I'm also not afraid to ask for what I want and state that clearly. And I'm not afraid to say to afterwards to like go over, well, this part was really good, this part not so much. I'm not, all the things that might have held me back from that in the past don't hold me back anymore. So that's fun. Then also the body changes. So for some people, when their hormones shift, they might need more lubrication from the outside. Nothing to be ashamed of. Just find a lube that works for you. I recommend organic lubes. I don't know the names of them offhand, but um, they're in here somewhere in the recesses. Um, oh, I know the one that comes with Sibian is a good one. It's organic. Can't think of it. I could put it in the notes for the show. Organic lubes are really good. Coconut oil is really good. Um,
Not for everyone, but
no,
yes.
not for everyone. Some people get a yeast infection from using the wrong thing. So sometimes you might need to be added lube. Sometimes you may need to rearrange the furniture so that it works for you because you can't bend in a certain way that you used to, or you need pillows underneath your butt because your body just needs more comfort and more leverage so you can do those kinds of things. Things change.
And I
But
think the sooner that people can become comfortable with that idea versus thinking that everything stops.
right.
Like
I think that's really there.
I'm gonna bell for
That
that
gets
one.
a ding. Yes.
I think it's a big concern for people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s is that I better have as much sex as I can now because eventually this is going to stop. My body's going to change. So I better date, people that are much younger while I can. But it's all this scarcity mentality of I've got to get it now before XYZ when we really don't have any idea what that's going to look like, particularly if we're actually committed to being in the unknown and committed to pleasure.
Exactly. Well, I think, this is a this is an area where we can be influenced by Madison Avenue and the commercial machines that are geared towards 20s and less, and often leaves people out who are older. And the baby boomers. I'm a baby boomer. I'm like one of the original baby boomers, and we're all of an age where we deserve pleasure just as much as we did in the 60s. And I feel like we can have that, but we have to make an effort. And you can't let yourself go to pot. Like you can't literally you can't let yourself deteriorate. So there's two things at play. One is, how do you eat? How do you take care of yourself? How do you exercise? All the things that we shouldn't let go of. And then the other part is, if you don't let go of all that stuff, why would you let go of this?
And a lot of this you touch on in your new book. And that's part of what we want to share. And not only the new book, but also a course to support people in this. I mean, really to guide people through it. The book outlines the practices. The course ensures that you do the practices.
Exactly. So it's called Sex and Happiness Over 60, and it's really geared for people 50 and over who are worrying about this, who have been met with some challenges. And there's so much in the book that talks about what it's going to take to be in the unknown, what Brianna's been referencing, and um, to move with grace.
Mm. And I think about so many of the clients that I have. I'd say the largest number of clients who come to me are over 50
Really?
and wondering what on earth they're going to do with themselves now. Either they've already felt a dip in libido, or their partners have felt a dip in libido, and they don't know how to talk about it. They've never had to talk about it before, and it's all new. And it can be very scary, or they're
Yeah,
craving
it
more
can.
touch after a separation, or they've been widowed. And there's all kinds
There's
of
all kinds of things.
there's all kinds of things that can come up for us, particularly in thinking. I think the most common thought is, am I just going to die alone and unhappy in suffering?
Yeah, so I would encourage you not to die. That's the first
Well,
thing.
especially if you're 50, you've got lots
Yeah,
of
right.
years left
Don't
under
go
you.
along with that.
Yeah.
My father was a widowed. Well, he was widowed at 72 by my mother, and he came to class. He came to Tantra class and learned all again how to deal with sexuality. And then he met someone later in his 70s who he madly fell in love with, and she madly fell in love with him. She wasn't a younger woman either, she was the same age as him. And he lived the rest of his life till 90, like madly in love with someone, and he was having great sex, although he was getting a little help from the blue pill. But so what? Like and I'm going to tell you something. I've discussed this before on the show. One time he was taking lessons with her at Arthur Murray. And I said to him, "What are you going to Arthur Murray for? You're a great dancer." And he said to me, "I'm with a new woman. I got to learn how to dance with her."
Mm.
And I said to him, "That's the most tantric thing I've ever heard." He said to me, "Seriously?" I'm like, "Yeah. Most men that I know of who already knew something are not going to take, in their 70s to take new stuff."
Mm.
My father said, "Look, she's a different dancer. I have to learn to dance with her."
I really think this is why everyone can benefit from learning Tantra, but also from working with coaches. One thing that we
Yes.
talk about with the apprenticeship program is that there can actually never be too many coaches, because I really believe that everyone could have a coach. We could have a coach around business. We could have a coach around relationships. Sometimes our business coach is coaching us around relationships. Sometimes our relationship coach is coaching us around business. And when we're talking about sexuality and partnership, we are always changing, even if we've been with the same partner for 20 years.
That's right.
We're always
That's
changing.
right.
There's always something new to dive into. So even sometimes I'll work with people for a year, and then we'll have check-ins once a month, afterwards, after they've been a long-standing client. And really diving into the ways that we can continue to open ourselves up. There's always something new. But when there's a new partner, if you're trying the same tricks that your old partner liked, and we talk about this in identifying desires and boundaries.
I know, I can't stand one-trick ponies. It makes me crazy.
Because we're all so unique and different.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those tricks are really fantastic. By all
Right,
means,
but not
try
the
all your
only
tricks on
thing
me.
every time, no. But I also want to say, I just want to talk about in this libido question, men as they age lose their testosterone, and women gain testosterone hormonally. So women start to be more like penetrating, and men start to be more, like soft. And that bothers them because they're used to being hard. So I'll just give one tip, and that just says have sex in the morning. If you're in a hetero couple, have sex in the morning, because it's more likely that if the man has testosterone, it's going to be surging right when he wakes up in the morning, than trying to make love at 8 o'clock at night. Doesn't work so good. And that's it. I have that in my relationship.
What's
so.
interesting too is if a couple is talking about this really openly, that they can actually play with that dynamic a little bit too. There can be a different polarity switch that happens when both people are accepting of it. Not that those things happen at the exact same time, but I have felt so honored when instead of being shamed for my dominating personality, it's been welcomed. And a partner is willing to come into surrender with me, so, and acknowledging like, got it, yeah, you've got a lot of dominating energy going on, let's play with that. Like, oh, it just feels so honoring to be loved for who I am, instead of being told I have to soften or I have to submit, which I actually really love to do also.
Yeah, but not like not your not your natural state.
It's not, but I do love it more and more, honestly, more and more. I've just worked through a lot of stuff these last couple of years, and softening and surrendering feels so good to me now.
That's good.
In a way that it never did before. Probably because I've been hanging out with you so much.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I wasn't into that either. And people would say to me, oh my God, you're so like aggressive. And I was like, oh. So I got kind of shy as a result. And that didn't serve me.
No, that conversation of I'm too much, but it's your too muchness that makes you you.
That's exactly
Thank goodness. Right. We want even more.
Thank you. So those are some things to think about, and we're going to bring them. We're going to bring some more. My show now is going to change some in that we're going to be talking more about the work. And, I hope this serves you. We want to hear. So if you feel to send an email to Laurie at lauriehandlers.com, please do that. And let me know how you're coming on with this, or shoot a note on Facebook or whatever. That would be really great, because I feel like this is going to serve more these days, and it's kind of what I'm more interested in. So if I'm all about pleasure, I'm going to do what makes me feel pleasure, and this makes me feel pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like I've interviewed so many people, and that's been great. And now I want to be interviewed. I have some things to say.
You have lots to say.
Yeah.
You have lots to say. Anyone who's been in a course with Laurie knows that it never ends. And each course is totally different. I mean, you've been teaching courses around Tantra and sexuality for decades. And each course, I hear something new and different. And I think that's a testament to how much you are really focusing on your own growth continuously. And one of the things that I absolutely love about you is your curiosity and your thirst for new knowledge, which has been one of the fun things about interviewing so many people over the years.
Oh, it has been. It's been like I get off the phone, I get off the Zoom and I go, wow, I just talked to the most amazing person, and that's how I feel about it. That's how I feel about these people. And I feel like I'm one of those people, so I need to either interview myself or you need to interview me.
Well, I think we're going to have a lot of fun with that. I already have 5 other ideas of things I want to talk to you about.
All right, that's great.
But for now, particularly, it's felt like pleasure and focusing on sex and happiness after 60 is what's bubbling to the surface. And particularly as we get ready to release the course for sex and happiness after 60.
Yeah, that's super. So in case you were sitting at the edge of your chair in the beginning, wondering what I was going to talk about, we're actually releasing 2 new courses. One is Sex and Happiness After 60, It Only Gets Better. And that will start April. So everything's packed. So it's like April something. 3rd week in April, I'll just say that. It'll start 3rd week in April. And we're also releasing something called, is it Mastering Pleasure?
Manifesting Pleasure.
Manifesting Pleasure. So that's where we started today. And we're looking forward to bringing people what they say they want, what they're concerned about, what they're curious about. And we'd love to see you there if you're one of those people. Like, if you don't know how to manifest pleasure, if you're concerned about aging, if you're concerned about being desirable and attractive, mastering pleasure, manifesting. Woo! Manifesting pleasure is for you. If you're 50 or over and you want to know how to really mix it up for the rest of your life and make it fun and great and challenging and hysterically fun, you should come to
Sex and
that one.
Happiness After 60.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And that's starting third week in April. So
more information on all of this coming up very soon.
Yeah. So usually I say this is Laurie Handlers. Stay tuned because we're going to have another amazing guest next time. And we are. It's me. And Briana has wonderfully agreed to interview me over and over. So we'll be talking about some more of this next time. Go a little deeper, hit from another angle.
Which is what we're really all looking for, getting it a little deeper and hitting from another angle.
Exactly. No sexual metaphor in there at all. So we'll see you next time. And we're giving you a lot of love. We can give you the heart and the kisses. We'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in.